We're coming up on the All-Star break. Hockey's going to take a pause, but that doesn't mean that we don't have wild speculation for you. We're going to do some of that today on Locked On NHL.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, you're listening to Locked On NHL, or you're watching Locked On NHL if you're extra, savvy and excited. The home of all sorts of hockey content here on your favorite podcast or YouTube app of choice. My name is Sarah Avampato, host of Locked On Kings and one half of your Western Conference Wednesday team, joined as always by Jess Belmosto. I feel like one time I said like best Gel Mosto, and then I like literally for like probably a solid year can't get that out of my head. So
gosh.
it almost came out of my mouth. Anyway, Jess, host of Calgary Flames, Locked On, Calgary Flames, co-host, partner in crime, somehow keeps me on track here on this show, here on Locked On NHL, here to talk to you about Western Conference stuff. Glad that you, our listeners, are listening and or watching, and thank you for making this show your first listen of the day. Jess, how is it going over there in Calgary? Still hasn't played enough games to know what's really happening.
Yeah. So tonight, as we're recording on Tuesday, they are playing the Dallas Stars, who they have the same amount of points. Their record's not the same, but they have the same amount of points. And we're just hoping for the best. I think. If someone told me in October that the Kings and Ducks would be ahead of the Flames in the standings, I would have said, okay, I bet my imaginary life savings that you're wrong.
Right. And here we are.
Right. So congratulations to your Kings.
Yay. I still think they'll probably blow it, but that's because every time I have confidence, they prove me wrong. So I'm just going to hope for the worst and then see what happens.
Yeah,
but,
you just have to manage the expectations.
Exactly. If you think you're going to win the Stanley Cup every year, you're going to be disappointed, Tampa Bay Lightning fans. So you just gotta be chill with it. And today it all does kind of tie in with what we're talking about today, because we're on the cusp of the All-Star, what was supposed to be the Olympic break, but isn't going to happen now. But we're still everyone's taking a little bit of time off anyway, which means that we're basically at the halfway point in the season. The trade deadline is going to be here before we know it. And so we figured let's get out ahead of things and take a look at the teams in the Western Conference and kind of do some crazy speculation as to, what teams need what for the trade deadline, who's going to stand pat, who's going to swing for the fences, any wild players we think might be available. So we're going to have a little bit of, crazy speculation on today's show. And as always, if and when we're wrong about things, no, we weren't.
This show, for legal reasons, never existed.
Exactly. Didn't happen.
We're never wrong.
No, never. So what's your first, biggest, hottest take as to some potential trade deadline shenanigans we could see?
I hate saying this, but because Johnny Gaudreau has been playing such phenomenal hockey and he is a UFA at the end of the season, this really could be the year that Calgary says goodbye to Johnny at the deadline. And I would like to come back and listen to this and laugh because I'm wrong, and I pray I'm wrong. But that feels like the most realistic move. They probably don't have cap space to pay him and Matthew Tkachuk. And, for the hockey he's playing, you might as well.
Do you think that if they're in because right now Calgary's in a wild card spot, it's been kind of back and forth. Do you think if they're in a secure playoff spot by the time the deadline comes that they might be you know what, let's just keep them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that will more than likely be the case. But if if, like you said, they're on the cusp and it's
Mhm.
that, like, there's no true security, I
Mhm.
could see them, whatever they get in return is going to be garbage.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that that's unfortunately a realistic opportunity.
Yeah. Um, One of my like the first like hottest, spiciest take that came to mind for me was actually a team that we talked about, I think last week. And that's St. Louis because they
Oh,
have a little bit of a like goalie conundrum at the moment that we talked about, where Jordan Binnington's been kind of meh lately. Ville Husso, who's the backup, has been pretty good. And does St. Louis do something with the goalie position, even if they're just bringing in like a third string guy just in case, like, Binnington goes totally off the rails or something, or they need like reinforcements for the playoffs. But I wouldn't be surprised to see them do something. And I feel like Huso, they're going to have a decision to make on. I'm pretty sure he's a unrestricted free agent. And he's like one of those guys who, well, you could probably trade him to another team who
yeah,
like super needs him, but also they kind of super need him at the moment too. But I wouldn't be surprised to see them maybe make a move at the goalie position. The hard part about being a team at the deadline looking to do something with goalies is like the goalies that are going to be available are the goalies on like the bad teams.
exactly.
So,
And they don't have money for, like,
mhm,
true goaltending. Like, that's
mhm,
no team has, like, $3 to $5 million in cap space.
mhm,
At
yeah.
least, I don't think, at this point in the season. And, if you're Vegas, you somehow just have, like, unlimited cap space because they, like, just signed another extension for, it might have been one of their AHL players, so it maybe doesn't count against the cap, but, like, regardless, like,
Right.
it's just you're not gonna go out there and get yourself, like,
Mhm.
I don't even know, I almost said Ben Bishop, but he retired, so
Aw.
whoops.
Oops.
But, there's limited availability.
Yeah. One goalie who will probably be available, Marc-Andre Fleury,
Yeah.
who is playing for Chicago, who, no matter what Chicago's front office tries to make you think, they're not going anywhere. I just watched them lose in a really boring, bad game to the Canucks. Like, they're not going to come back. So I feel like Fleury is going to be one to watch. His cap hit is 7 million, but I'm sure that Chicago would be willing, to eat this is the end of his contract. I'm sure they'd be
Right.
willing to eat a chunk of that to trade him somewhere. And then it's more about like, you know, he's an icon. Like, how much, unlike Vegas, who just unceremoniously traded him, like, how much say does he get in where he goes? I know there was like a rumor going around that like Washington was interested, but
I
that it
saw
was going to be a hard sell. Like, Flurry was like, you know, he's
no,
still a Penguin at heart in many ways. Like, how can you get him to play on the Capitals? But
exactly.
he is definitely who I would think, of all the good goaltenders out there, like, is most likely to end up somewhere else. Ooh, I just
Yeah,
imagined him as a St. Louis Blues, and that hurts me.
that may
I don't like that.
imagining him outside of Pittsburgh
Yes.
was hard enough,
Yes.
but imagining him in a Blues uniform would be,
Mhm.
it's just those aren't his colors.
No,
Uh,
no, dislike.
but like you said, I think that that's one exception when like a team is more likely than not trading someone because they don't want to
Mhm,
retain any of their money. But,
mhm,
I think if the price is right and Chicago, I really don't feel like they have much wiggle room or leverage when it comes to anything right
no.
now. So, if they retain, 4 or 5,
Mhm.
have the whole contract if they really want it, uh, I think that a team would be willing to take him. I
Mhm.
think that anyone would be smart to
Yeah.
take him. But I also feel like Alan Walsh would be like, "He's not going here." He's
Right.
abs like, hang up the phone,
Yeah.
block their number, call them back, once my client's gone.
Right, right. Yeah. No, that'll be interesting to see it play out. Like, and I would just hope that like Chicago doesn't do him dirty like Vegas did. Um, because that would be sad. He's Marc-Andre Fleury. He's just such a nice guy. Be nice to him.
Right? Like, he didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
He
You
didn't
just
ask for this.
right. You gave him the contract. Like, you can't get mad at him for that. He took the
Right.
money you offered him. What's
Right.
up
It's
with
not
that?
his fault your team stinks.
Yeah. So there. We'll have some more spicy takes coming up after this, but let's talk to you about something that is maybe not quite as spicy, but it is pretty tasty.
Yes, and that would be Built Bars. You guys are probably familiar with them if you listen to this show often. But for those newbies out there, Built Bars are a delicious tasting protein bar that fuel your brain, leave you full. They're great for anybody who's on the go. I carry them in my backpack when I'm on campus because I am always hungry and just need to keep that brain going. And you can get your brain going and satisfy your hunger at a discounted price thanks to the folks at Built Bar and I guess built.com. So head on over to built.com today and use promo code LOCKED15 to get your discounted Built Bars. They're a delicious tasting protein bar that are covered in 100% chocolate. And if that doesn't sell you, then their variety of flavors will. My favorite thing is going on to the website probably once a week and just seeing what's there and just the variety of flavors. And if I want to try a new one or if I want to try a variety pack, I wish I had $1 for every time I said variety this ad read. But in all seriousness, built.com has you covered for your protein bars and are hooking you up with a 15% discount when you use promo code. Look at that. Locked15. Is that the brownie one? Is that the one you ordered last week?
It is. It is. It is the coconut brownie chunk.
That
And you
sounds
can
so
use the promo code and go to built.com
good. Yeah.
and get some of your own.
She bought those with her own money.
I did. I did. My own hard-earned dollars went
Yeah.
to snacking.
I don't blame you. I love snacks.
They're so great. Yeah. Arizona. Let's dunk on Arizona. It's been a hot minute since we've dunked on them. And they're a team that, like, if they are not trading everything that isn't nailed down, I don't know what's wrong with them.
I just like I'm trying to be nice because that was one of my New Year's resolutions was to look on the bright side of things and but for those of you who this doesn't have to do with the trade deadline, but for those of you who maybe live under a rock and haven't heard of Arizona potentially having played Arizona State because of venue issues and whatnot, but the school I go to has 2 D3 hockey programs, and I don't think there's many seats as ASU. But I don't like they sell out for the men's game and for when the women's team is in the championship, but I don't know if they'd sell out for a Coyotes game. I really don't. And I'm not saying that to like be mean, but the Coyotes aren't good. So selling all of your roster players would be great.
Yeah. And I just pulled them up on Cap Friendly just to see what their
Ooh.
situation is like. They like don't have anyone under contract for next year, basically. So here are their current unrestricted free agents as of the end of this season: Phil Kessel, Louis Eriksson, Antoine Roussel, Johan Larson, Ryan Zingle, Liam O'Brien, Riley Nash, Alex Galchenyuk, Travis Boyd, Anton Strawman, Ilya Lyubushkin, Scott Wedgwood, Dmitry Jaskin, Jay Beagle, Carter Hutton, scrolling down to the bottom of the list. And then they also have a whole bunch of RFAs, including Lawson Krause, Christian Fisher, Cal Capobianco, Dyson Mayo, who it sounds like a fake name, but I have seen him a bunch of times. I know he's a real person. Karl Vejmelka, their goalie, who's like goalieing everybody. Barrett Hayton, Cam Dineen. Like, I don't know who's going to play for this team next year. Because
I don't think anyone is.
Right. It's very Like, the only players they have signed long-term, Clayton Keller, who is good and deserves it, Nick Schmaltz, who is fine, um, Jake Chitrin, who is constantly, like, part of the
Always
trade
in the
rumor
trade
mill.
headlines.
Yes, and, like,
Always.
he is if Arizona wants a haul of players and prospects and draft
Not
picks and
Taylor
stuff.
Hall. You already had him.
Ah, look at that. He's who they need to move. But like it would also be dumb to move him if you think that you need him. Like who else is
Yeah.
going to play? Like I don't envy them because they have some really hard decisions to make, aka how do they ice a roster next year? Because it's not even like they have a bunch of guys stashed in Tucson in the AHL who they
Right.
could bring up. Like Tucson's okay, but they're not NHL ready guys. But like
This
who
is
do you
where the league is going to tell them this is your ultimatum.
Yeah.
Because I'm not even like trying to be disrespectful or anything,
Mhm.
but like people dunk on women's sports by saying like, "Oh, they don't make any money." You're telling me right now that the Arizona Coyotes are in the green with all of the problems that they allegedly have going on in their
Mhm.
organization, in their front office. You can't get people to come to your games. No one is cheering for the home team when they're there. My friend lives in Arizona. I went to the game against the Bruins. It was dead silent when they introduced the Coyotes. Went nuts when the Bruins were out there. Don't talk to me about how this women's sports don't make any money when teams like the Arizona Coyotes exist in a men's league and are looking to downgrade, not because this new stadium's being built, but because they can't give away tickets to put butts in the seats to watch that god awful team. Okay, that's
Yeah.
all. Thank you.
I like it. I like it. Yeah, moral of the story, get your stuff together, Arizona. Also trade everyone, but also you need a plan for next season because
Like
right now
Phil
you have
Kessel is also a name that is always
oh yeah.
always. I feel like after he's long retired, we're gonna see a TSN trade bait like board with his name, like the ghost of
Right.
Phil Kessel.
Is Phil Kessel coming back?
Right.
Like and I could totally see him trading him to like some team that just needs like depth scoring. He doesn't
Yeah,
need to like be defensively responsible. He doesn't need to care about anything. Just put a puck in a net and like he can
yep,
still do that.
right. Just get
But
him out of
yeah,
Arizona.
yeah. But like yeah, Jake Chitrin's going to be interesting to watch. I know the Kings have been rumored to be interested in him. I wouldn't hate it. He's a really good player. His numbers this year are horrible, but look at the team around him.
Right,
Like, of
and that's
course
the
they're going to be
thing.
bad. Yeah.
And I remember people were, like, making fun of, um, OEL at the start of
Mhm.
Vancouver's training camp because of how out of shape he is or how
Aw.
slow he was, and I was like, "Did you expect him
Right.
to be giving it
Right.
100% for a team that can't get to 15%?"
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
I just it's, like, worse than the bad news bears. I like and I don't think it's necessarily a reflection of the players
Mhm.
because, like, they have decent players, but they also, like, can't get it to click.
Yeah. Yeah, they have a
So
lot of guys who, like, individually, I would stick them on, like, the bottom 6 of any team, and they'd be
right,
okay. But, like, most of these guys, I feel like, are having to, like, punch above their weight, essentially. Like, they're just
right.
having to, like, play way more than they should, and, like, it's not ending well for any of them. And I feel like another team in, like, not the same situation because they well, first off, sell out, their games and everything, and B, they're supposed to be kind of mediocre, is Seattle, um,
Right.
who is in sort of a similar situation of, like, listen, they're not gonna make the playoffs, they're not gonna, like, make a last-minute push. They have a bunch of guys on expiring contracts, fully a whole chunk of them. Jared McCann, Callie Yarncroc, Marcus Johansson, Mason Appleton, Riley Shahan, Ryan Donato, Morgan Geeky, Colin Blackwood, Carson Kuhlman. Some of these people have to be made up. Mark Giordano, Hayden Fleury, Jeremy Lazan, like all those guys, plus a whole bunch of like taxi squad people,
Yeah,
um, all on like expiring deals, either restricted or unrestricted free agents. Like this is a team that should be moving people out and in exchange get like prospects or picks or whatever. And I feel
But
who's going to take most of them?
no one. That's why they were
Like,
expansion
yes.
draftees.
I feel like the most attractive one they have is Mark Giordano, but it's like, do you really trade your first season captain? Like,
Yes, they would. They would. And I just I think that the Seattle organization, like, they went into things with the best of intentions. Like, they hired
mhm,
phenomenal statisticians, and all these pretty graphic stats
mhm,
people, but that didn't translate.
yeah,
That didn't
yeah,
translate. And I think if Seattle was in a better um, playoff picture spot, they could go after Marc-Andre
mhm,
Fleury because they need a goaltender.
mhm,
But
yeah,
I don't think that's happening.
no, no. So they should sell, and
Which is so bad when you think about
right,
it.
right, like yeah, like you said, like these players are all on an expansion team for a reason,
Right.
like
Or like waiver wire claims because
right.
no one wanted them.
They're a team that probably should sell, but might not be able to, you know?
Yeah, it's like a used car lot with all
Right.
like
Or like
2001 Corollas,
where like
200,000
the
miles
window doesn't go up the whole way.
on. Right, like
Right.
you're cranking. It still has like a cassette tape. Like,
Right, or like maybe Seattle ends up being the team in those like, three-way team trade
oh
things
yeah,
where Seattle's just sort of like the broker for, to help move someone else along and gets like a prospect or something in the deal. But yeah, they have a lot of players they should move, but I don't know who
I
wants
don't know
them.
if
No
they.
disrespect to any of them. But aside
I'm sure
from
they're
Mark
great guys.
Giordano, like
Yeah.
none of them are like deadline guys.
No, like I'm not going to Seattle, and I love Ryan Donato. He's a great kid, but like I'm not calling Seattle and saying,
Right.
I will give you my first round pick this year and a second for Ryan
Yeah.
Donato or literally anyone on your team.
Right.
But
You're like, here's a fifth round.
right,
Have fun.
have fun. Use it wisely because you
Mhm.
clearly need better players.
Mhm.
But there's just no one on that team that I'm like,
Yeah.
give it to me.
No. Well, we'll see what happens there. And if you want to, I don't know, put some bets down on who is maybe going to go places, I bet that you can do that by going to betonline.net. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football continues its march through the playoffs right down to the big game in just a couple weeks. BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And of course, it isn't just football that you can find there. BetOnline has up to the minute information on pro and college hoops, the NHL, boxing, UFC, along with live real time updates of current games. So don't wait to take advantage of all the new and amazing offers available for the 2022 season. Go check it out at betonline.net. BetOnline, where the game starts. So I wanted to, before we close on our like happy news of the day, the only other teams that I like am curious about is like the bubble teams, and I can pick on my own team here as an example. And I mean, I can pick on like Southern California hockey as a whole here as an example because like it's the situation I'm imagining, which is like the Ducks are like pretty firmly in a playoff spot. Like right now, they're tied with Vegas for points, which is crazy to me. But like, I don't see them, unless something catastrophic happens. I feel like they'll probably stay in the playoff picture. Like the Kings are like also kind of in that same boat. But like these are teams that no one in either organization is kidding themselves and is going to be like, yes, Anaheim is a Stanley Cup contender. They're going to win the cup this year. Like the Kings are going to like, no, they're
No.
not. And so like those are the teams that are always interesting at the deadline because it's like the front office knows they shouldn't go out and do anything insane. Like they're not going to go acquire whoever the biggest, hottest like
Right.
deadline guy is. But like I know a lot of teams have the philosophy of like, well, if we're going to get to the playoffs, like let's,
Let's do
show our team,
something.
let's do something. Show our team a little bit of faith, like bring in somebody. And so I feel like those are the teams that could like not make like crazy noise, or like, if they do, it would be like the Kings going after Chychrun, because it's like, oh, this is like a long-term deal. This isn't just a
Right.
deadline thing.
Which again shows faith, and it's not just a
Mhm.
rental.
Yeah. And so like those are the teams that I'm really curious to see what happens, because it's like, yeah, they're not going to win the cup, but for teams that are rebuilding, for younger teams like that, like the idea of getting them playoff experience is so valuable. Of,
Right.
yeah, I want to see Quentin Byfield in the playoffs. I want to see Trevor Zegras try that stupid fancy goal in the playoffs.
Right.
Like John
I
Tortorella would
wanna
have a
see
heart
it.
attack. Like,
Could you
but
imagine? Oh my god.
it would be so
I
good. I mean, I don't want anything bad. I just
Right,
want to
but,
be
like,
mad about
him
it. Like,
trying that goal would be sick. But
yeah,
that's
it'd be
the
great.
thing is, like, a lot of people see, like, a first round exit as a failure. If you're the
Hmm.
Leafs and you can't do it with all that top money on the top line, yes, you are a failure.
Right. Yeah.
You again,
Yeah.
another team that should just be abolished.
Yeah.
But if you are a young team like the Kings and the Ducks,
Hmm.
and I'm sure there's another young team out there that I'm just not thinking of, but um, I think that you give them that first round experience and you
Hmm.
say, okay, what did you learn from that? Like
Yeah.
how can you improve and
Hmm.
what are you going to do next year when we get there?
Right.
And it doesn't have to be like, oh my god, we're in the playoffs, we're winning the Stanley Cup.
Right.
Yes, of course. Like that's the mentality, that you
Right.
want, but you have to
Right.
look at it realistically and
Yeah.
break it down and say, okay, baby steps to get to the big
Hmm. Hmm.
show. And
Yeah.
I think that's what's going to be exciting and really just for the future of the Ducks too, because I think
Hmm.
they have such a special team there that's
Yeah.
just so fun to watch.
Yeah, and I feel like that's like you hear that a lot from players who have won before, especially guys who won like fairly early in their career. Was
Mhm.
like, I didn't know how hard it was to win the stand, like to win it until I did it, like, or I didn't know how hard it would be to get back there. I feel like Drew Doughty
Yeah,
like did an interview with like the Athletic just did kind of an article about that, of like, you win it and then you're like, the hill to climb to get back here is so hard, and like without having that, sure, okay, it's going to stink if you get eliminated in the first round, but okay, that like you're not the only one. There's a bunch of other teams that
right,
did too. And like now now how like these veteran guys prepare for the playoffs, and like how amped up it really gets. Like it's
right.
a valuable experience.
And then like I just look at it, 3 years ago, Tampa was
Mhm.
swept in the first
Mhm.
round.
Mhm.
And to go back not once, but
Mhm.
twice
Yeah.
is huge. And yeah, people say, oh, it was a bubble. Well, it was this. Shut up.
Yeah, they
Still
still
played the
won.
games.
Yeah.
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 Like, don't, just because your team lost does not
Yeah.
mean,
And they're still a contender now. Like it's not even like, oh, they fell apart.
right. It wasn't just like a
They've
fluke.
Yeah, like they had a little bit of a rough start, but they're back up there now,
Mhm.
and are poised to go very far in the playoffs unless something nuts happens. But yeah, there's a lot of teams. I feel like in the West there aren't so many of like the bubble teams in that respect. Like I feel like once you get past kind of like Calgary, Dallas in the standings, it's like Edmonton, and then a bunch of teams that are not going to do anything.
Right.
Um,
Like, there's
like
a very short list
yes,
of teams
yeah.
that will go out there.
Yeah. But yeah, some of those younger teams I think will be that's always more interesting to me than like who gets the biggest fish in the
Yeah.
trade deadline. It's like who makes this like the smart moves that are going to set the team up for future success, and not
Right.
just blow it all on like 15 games of Taylor Hall.
Yeah, and I know this is the Western Conference show, but I'm stuck in the past in 2019 when the Bruins traded Ryan Donato to
Mhm.
Minnesota for Charlie Coyle in like a
Oh
third round,
yeah.
and then Marcus Johansson,
Yeah.
and almost won the Stanley Cup. So you know what? If you can make smart moves like that,
Yeah.
and maybe add a defenseman or
Yeah.
something,
Who knows?
do it.
Yeah. Have fun.
Yeah, having a
Well,
fun
we
time.
will Right. We will close on a fun note.
Yes,
It's
for
not about
once.
pets, although, you're always welcome again to send us your pet pictures. But this is about Willie O'Ree, who finally had his number retired by the Boston Bruins fairly recently,
Yes.
and now is getting the recognition from the United States. He is going to receive the Congressional Gold Medal. President Biden signed it into law. It was, well, not law, but, signed it, did the
Yeah.
thing. The House and the Senate both passed it. And so he is now going to be the first hockey player to receive the Congressional Gold Medal in the nearly 250-year history of the award. It was a rare bipartisan vote in the government, and very widely celebrated. If you do not know what the Congressional Gold Medal is, this is right from the NHL.com article. So thank you to the person who wrote it. The Congressional Gold Medal is awarded to individuals or groups for distinguished achievements and contributions. Recipients include, this is funny, George Washington. George Washington.
Well, did he give it to himself?
That would be amazing. Orville and Wilbur Wright, Jackie Robinson, Thomas Edison, Martin Luther King Jr., Coretta Scott King, and all sorts of other people. But those are the examples they gave. So it's basically like, did you do something really great? Here's an award.
I was going to say, like, if Willie O'Ree is getting it, did Jackie Robinson get it?
Yes.
So,
yes.
that's, I'm glad that that happened.
Yeah, they got that one right. He is, of course, in the Hockey Hall of Fame. He was inducted in 2018 as a builder. He is a guy who is known for his off-ice work in helping to grow the game and helping to bring hockey to communities that may not have hockey or may not have the advantages that other communities have. He did have a long pro career outside of playing for the Bruins. He played in the old Western Hockey League. So he spent a lot of time in LA and in San Diego. He is very well loved by both of those teams. He gets honored frequently by the Kings, the Reign, the Ducks, the Gulls. I believe the Gulls just retired his number as well.
They did, yeah.
And I think they actually found like an old game used jersey of his from when he played in San Diego to present him with. And I was like, how long has that been sitting around? That's an amazing find.
Now I want to know what else is in these.
Right? Like what kind of crazy like archives do they have?
Right? That's so cool.
Yeah, but he, despite not playing in the NHL in the Western Conference, he does have a long history, long ties to the left side of the map, and of course is just a hockey icon for his contributions and for breaking that barrier in hockey. And glad to see that for once everyone can agree on something, and that is that Willie O'Ree deserves all the recognition.
Yeah, and I think that that's absolutely phenomenal and well-deserved. And I'm pretty sure he lives out in San Diego now.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, number one, good for him. I, too, would like to move away from the cold weather on the East Coast.
It's like 65, 70 degrees all day, every day.
Are you kidding me? Let me live somewhere where my joints don't hurt. But, but no, I think it's just phenomenal. And I know that his daughters take really good care of him, and he's still doing great. Like he's thriving. So good for him. Much deserved, and I'm glad the Bruins organization finally did the thing.
Yeah. So congrats to Willie O'Ree, and can't wait to see what trails get blazed next in this sport of ours. And that's it for today. So thanks for hanging with us. Next week, I'm sure we will, something ridiculous, I'm sure will happen at the All-Star game that we can talk about or make fun of or whatever. And we'll keep an eye. Right. Oh, that's right. Eichel Watch. Eichel Watch officially begins.
It's February.
The month of Eichel. Here we go. Here we go. So we'll be ready for that moment when it happens. Until next time, you can find me on Twitter at RightSaidSarah. The show's on Twitter at LockedOnNHL Pods, where you can find all the cool stuff happening across the network. Jess, where can folks find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Jess Belmosto. And if you're watching on YouTube, it's right there on the screen. Always down for some good old-fashioned dialogue. And you can find my show wherever you get Locked On NHL and Locked On Kings.
Yeah. So show is available wherever you get your podcast. It's available on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribing. If you're into the Olympics, make sure you're tuning into this show, Locked On NHL, because we're going to be having special episodes devoted to Olympics coverage. Erica Ayala, who's our host of Locked On Kraken, is over in Beijing covering the Olympics. And so she's going to be doing some special on the ground reporting for us here. So you'll get to hear from her all throughout the festivities. So if you are interested in knowing what's going on over there, make sure you tune in. We have Rachel and Ann. Rachel's from Locked On Flyers, and Ann is from Locked On Preds. They're going to be doing some stuff. So here we go. And yeah, so that's it. We'll see you next week on Locked On NHL, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.